Hey there, how's it going? My name is Nick, and over the last week I've been making this game called Prudent Movement for the 8-Bits to Infinity Shape Jam 2. This jam is a little different than most jams you've heard of. It's a 2-week jam. The first week you make a game using simple shapes. And then the second week, other people can take a game you made, or you can take a game that someone else made, and you're meant to be able to update the art, change the levels around, just kind of change the game to make it your own. So it's a bit of a collaborative effort this time. So this video is meant to show you how to take the game and change it however you'd like. First off, I'm going to show some examples of how the game works, how it plays, and then we'll get into how to change the art, how to change the levels, and that sort of thing. If you don't care about seeing the game, you've already played it, you just want to jump in, there will be timestamps down at the bottom. Feel free to reference those and just jump to whatever part you need. So let's jump on in and take a look at the game itself real fast. Let's go ahead and click play and we can take a look. I made 20 levels for the game. You can make more, you can always take this, add levels, change every level I made, do whatever you'd like. Let's go ahead and take a look at level 1 and we can see how the game actually works. So it's a very simple game. All you have to do is use the mouse to click and pick up the dot here, and the timer will start counting down. If the timer hits 0, the dot dies, and you start over. If you hit the walls at any time, the dot dies and you start over. The dot only dies if you are holding it while it touches a wall. We will see later, if you are not holding it and it touches a wall, the dot will be just fine. But all you have to do is move the dot before the timer runs out without hitting a wall and get it to the goal. It's as simple as that. You just move it around and you're in. The levels get a little tighter and a little trickier. The dot does not stay exactly with you, so if you move too fast, the dot will trail behind you, so you have to keep that in mind. For instance there, I did not go fast enough, but I can swing this around, and good. Once you pick up the dot, even if you put it back down, the timer still goes, so you're kind of out of luck if you pick it up and weren't ready to start. But you can always just run it in, there's no penalty for dying, so if you pick it up and weren't ready, just run it into the wall, you're good, and you can go again. And see there, that was just me not moving correctly. It's trickier than it looks at times. I basically designed this game off of the idea of those old school carnival games where you had to take the metal pole and move it around the spinning metal tube and not hit the sides. It's kind of like a super complicated operation. Now here we've hit the only other mechanic I was able to fit in. I'll talk about the restrictions of getting this whole game put together once we get into the actual code part and the actual engine. But the other effect here is we have conveyor belts. So if you take the dot and drop it on a conveyor belt, it will move and that will allow it to pass through walls. So we'll be able to complete levels where we wouldn't be able to otherwise by dropping them in. The thing is, the conveyor belts aren't the fastest, so you have to balance your time to be able to give yourself enough time that you can let it run through the conveyor belt and move it in. That's pretty much exemplified by this level, which I've dubbed Hurry Up and Wait, which you have to quickly get the dot around, up, and let it sit, because this is going to take a minute for it to, a couple seconds for it to go through. But once it does, you grab it and you put it in and you're good to go. So this is the whole game. Every level has walls, a dot, an end, a timer, a level name and number, and then depending on whether you have conveyor belts or not, conveyor belts. And that's the simple game. You can always jump back to the menu pressing M. Progress is unlocked. I've unlocked everything here, but if this is your first time playing, you will see gray boxes for every level that you have not completed. Once you reach a level, it is now unlocked for you permanently, so you can always go back to it and try it again. The About section will again tell you basically what this whole video is telling you about and link you to this video right here. And More Games jumps you to My Itch page, which again can all be tweaked once you download the game. So if you'd like to download the game and start playing with it yourself, you can go ahead and come here on the itch page, scroll down to the bottom, select the file here labeled prudentmovement.c3p, that is the construct file. Go ahead and download that and just put it in a place where you're able to access it. Once you have the file downloaded, you're going to want to go to construct.net Once you're on that page, you don't need to register. Again, this file was built with the free version so that anybody can use it without any kind of registering, signing up, paying any money. You don't have to worry about any of that. You can come down to Try It Now, and then select Launch Now. And Construct is an in-browser engine, so everything will launch inside your browser. So all we have to do is come to the top right here and select File. Select the prudentmovement.c3p file, wherever you saved it. I just threw mine on my desktop. Click Open, and that's going to go ahead and open up the file. You'll get this pop-up talking about the limits of the free version, and that's because I have packed this thing to the brim and used everything I could out of the free version. So it's kind of encouraging me to purchase it. For you guys, when this pops up, just click Cancel, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, if you've never used Construct before, this might look a little overwhelming. Don't worry, we'll go through it real fast. You have a couple of different panels around the outside. So let's start with the project panel here on the top right. If you select up here at the top folder, which is Prudent Movement, this is basically the highest of the hierarchy for the entire project. And by selecting that, that will populate the Properties panel on the left-hand side. Over here, you will see the name, the version number, quick description, author's name. This can all be changed and edited. I wouldn't worry too much about any of the splash screens. The loader screen has to stay as a Construct 3 splash screen if you are still in the free version. That's just one of the limitations. So unfortunately, that can't be changed if you do want to use this and make your own game out of it. If you wanted to remove the Construct splash screen, you will have to buy a license. Otherwise, you can just leave it in there and publish the game for free, the way you see the game currently. This will tell you other information. We don't need to go into that. That's not really relevant to updating the game currently. So coming down the project panel, we have our layouts. Layouts are what everything runs on in Construct. So you will always be on a layout. That's what's visible on screen. If you're on level 1, we will be seeing the level 1 layout. Same with menu. So if I double click on menu here, this is our menu layout. So this is where I'm able to lay out everything. And then if we hit play, it will play us and show us the layout as it stands. I'm going to go ahead and close that now. I'm going to collapse these down. We'll come back to layouts momentarily. Then we have our event sheets. Construct is a visual code-based language, so you're not writing any syntax. Everything is done through these event blocks. I will go into this at the very end. I don't think a lot of people are going to care as much about the event blocks, but we'll get into that as well. Just note that the free version of Construct only allows you 25 events, and as you can see here, I have used every single one of those events to make sure that this game works out really well. I've tried to comment everything as well, so it's at least understandable what is what. So moving down the project panel, the next thing to look at would be our object types. So objects in Construct are basically everything we use. It's from sprites to tiled wallpaper to 9 patches to text to plugins. Everything sits in this object types. Now, if I was using the paid version like I normally do, I would have these in subfolders, which makes it a lot easier to organize and keep track of everything. In the free version, subfolders are not allowed. Again, the free version is really here to let you get a feel and play around with the engine, not to build a whole game in. So I kind of built something a little more than they were probably planning for here. So if you're only interested in this file is you want to get in there and start changing the art and play around, if you're doing part 2 of the Shape Jam, this is going to be the area you're going to want to focus on the most. I will get into that momentarily. The last thing we have down here to look at, we don't need to worry about timelines. None of those are in the project. We need to look at sounds, music, and fonts. Those are the last extra files that I have in here. Sounds, pretty self-explanatory. These are just the sound effects that play in the game. Music, the same as well. And the font is the font that I use throughout the game. The free version, I believe, only allows you to have one font embedded in the project. So if you would like to update the font, that's perfectly fine. But I do believe you only get one in the free version. So if you just care about the art, let's go ahead and take a look at how to update that. It's fairly simple. What you're going to want to focus on is this object types here. And you can come down and we can see something like our objective. So our objective is the yellow circle here that we pick up and move. If we double click on it, we can double click either from the project panel or on the layout itself. So if you select it on the layout, you can double click here and that will pull up the Construct image editor. Now, the Construct image editor is actually pretty decent. It's not horrible, but it's very basic. So you can't do a whole lot of things that you may want to. So I do suggest if you're going to be changing the art, use something like Aseprite, Photoshop, Krita, any other image editing software that you use, and then import your files. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Construct does have the option for animations, which I didn't really do much animation in this. I can pull up, actually the conveyors do have animations, so this would be the best one to look at. So if you want to have animations running, we can see over here, we have our these are the different animations I have. I have up, right, left, and down. And each one has a 4-frame animation in it. We can test them by right-clicking and clicking Preview. That will pull up the little preview window here and show you what it looks like. We can close it. If you select an animation, you get a little properties panel down here. This will show you the name, the speed. So if we wanted to make this go super fast, I can go ahead and change this up to like 30. Now if we preview, look how fast that moves. So super simple to change your speed. I'm going to go ahead and revert this back because I would like to keep that the way it is. You can set it to loop or not because this is constantly running. I do have it looping. If you just want to have it play once though, you just uncheck loop. Repeat, you could have it repeat a couple of times. Repeat 2, I've honestly never used any of these, or ping pong. Ping pong will just go forward and back, so it'll play the animation backwards once it gets to the end. Again, I very rarely ever use these, but if you have a good use for them, go ahead, feel free to use them. If you want to check the image size, you can go ahead and select resize up here at the top. Most images in this are 64 by 64. There are a few that aren't, but you can always check what the size is by selecting up here. Crop's pretty self-explanatory, rotate, flip, all of that's pretty self-explanatory. Again, I would suggest making these outside of the image editor, but if you do use it, you've got a bunch of tools here. The ones that you do need to be aware of are the origin points, so that's this little crosshair button here, and the collision polygon. Origin point is the basis of the image. For most of this game, I have everything in the top left, and all you have to do if for some reason, say your image point is right here in the middle, and that's weird. You don't want that. You've imported an image. It does try and default it to the center when you import an image. All you have to do is right-click, quick assign, top left. Or you can quick assign to any other place you would like. And once you've done that, if you've imported several different images and you know what's happened to all of them, you can right-click and you have the option to apply it to the whole animation, which will be these 4 frames down here, or apply to all animations, which means it will make that change to every single animation plus every frame you have. The origin point is where the game considers the sprite to basically be rooted. So as you set everything up, the origin point is where it places it. So if you set something to 0, 0, this spot right here will be at 0, 0 on your page. Next we have collision polygons. These are what the game uses as far as hitboxes and can detect when things are on top of other things. For example, with the conveyor belts, the collision polygon is important because once we set the objective on top of it, if it's in this collision polygon, it registers that it's on top of it and it will move the objective. These can get really wonky if you import an image that has a bunch of transparent space. If it is, and it comes in and it's super wonky like this, and I'm not kidding, I've seen it look like that, all you have to do, right-click anywhere, set bounding box, that will apply it to the entire side. And if you would like to, you can go ahead, select one point and move it with the arrow keys if you like, however you need it. And this also works just like the origin point, where if you right click, you have the option to apply it to whole animation or apply to all animations. And that's the basis of the sprites. They're all pretty similar to that. I have the objectives where if we come in here, this is the collision polygon for the objective. It makes it a little bit nicer for getting through tight spaces. And again, if we wanted to come in, we can select some things and do something like that. And all you have to do is close out now, and now our objective on every level has that smiley face. So if you really want to, you can go ahead and do that. To preview, you go ahead and press this play button right up here. And everything should work the same. Okay, we can go ahead and close this. I will undo that change because I personally don't want the smiley face on there currently. But if you want to go for that, feel free. I did something a little weird with the end here. So for the end goal, if we double click, you can see that there's a bunch of holes in a bunch of random spaces like this. And this was just to add a little variety to the game itself. The theme of the jam was connection, so you're trying to make the connection of putting the circle back into the hole. And instead of always having it in the center, I just have it kind of in different places. And at the start of the level, it'll choose one of these frames randomly, and then that's it. It just sits there. The collision polygon is just around the hole on these, so you can move that around however you like. But keep in mind, it will only register when it hits the collision polygon. So if I bring in the object over here and I don't hit this polygon, it will not count as finishing the level. And then once you finish the level, the square is whole and it spins out, and that just sets it to the full animation here, which is just the yellow square. Again, cursor, all of these things you can play with. Buttons, I have multiple frames as well. If you are using multiple frames and don't want to actually have an animation play, like I have here, what I've done is I've just set the speed to 0. So that means that whichever frame I set in the layout, it will just stay on that frame and never play through the animation. All right, so all other sprites should be pretty self-explanatory except for the walls. If you are not familiar with what a 9 patch is, I would suggest just looking it up real fast. They're not crazy complicated. All they are pieces. So this is broken up into 9 pieces. So this would be 1 section, this would be 2, this would be 3, and then if you continue that down, we'd have 6 on this row and then 9 on this row. So it's broken up, and however large you make a shape, this will always be the bottom left, this will always be the bottom right, this will always be the top right, and then this middle section will just be extended infinitely. Same with the center, same with the sides. So if we take a look at the walls over here, I can increase this all the way up here, and it keeps that same shape because of the 9 patch. So it always keeps those corners the same and just repeats the sides and middle. I did this because it's a lot easier to design out the levels where I can just drag this however I need to. So just keep that in mind. I would look up how to deal with a 9 patch if you do want to use the 9 patch to change the art for this, because you're going to need to keep certain sections able to extend. So again, if your only goal is to update all of the art in the game and leave everything else the same, that's pretty much all you'll need. You'll just want to go through and play with all the stuff in here. Death is actually, right here where it says death, this is actually a particle. So it's just a small thing, but that's what you see when we hit the wall and it shoots out. That is a particle. So if I come in here and we change this to pink or reddish, now that particle is going to be red instead. So that's a very easy thing to change. You can make this other colors, other shapes. So if you do make your own art outside of Construct, you're going to want to be able to import it inside of Construct to actually make it work. So I'm going to show with the conveyor belt here. We will go ahead, if you want to just import one frame, you come up here to the folder, click it, and select your image. I'm going to go into my Rocksmacker tutorial because I have assets that I can use in here. Although these are actual sprite sheets as opposed to individual images, but I'll go ahead and click it and import so you can see what happened. So you see it brought it all in, and now this frame is all of these characters. If you do your sprites individually, you can do them that way, or you can right click down here, import frames, either from file or strip. If you do individual files, select this, and then you can select multiple files. If you're doing a strip, like this one was, select that, strip, click OK. Select the number, I believe that actually had 6 animations, and click OK, and that will actually bring stuff in. So when you're bringing in your own images, that's all you have to do is either import it in the top left here where you load image, or down here in the actual frames, right click, import frames, and either from file or from strip. And that is pretty much all of the art. Again, if you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to leave a comment down below, message me on Twitter, or hit me up on Discord. I am in the 8bits to Infinity Discord, and I will be happy to answer any questions there. But if you're just looking to change art, this should be all you need. Okay, so if you want to change the levels around, make your own, mess with your friends, make some that are incredibly hard and send them out and see if your friends can beat them, go for it. There's just a few things you'll need to know. The timer and the level name and everything is actually on this HUD layout up here. This is a separate layout that's set to global. It goes across all of the actual levels. So you shouldn't need to touch this unless you're changing the font. Even so, if you're changing the font, you probably don't need to actually change anything. You may just need to mess with the spacing. But if you don't need to, I would suggest just leaving that alone. These are just sprites with instructions on them, so you don't have to worry about these as well. You could always just delete them. But if you want to build a level, All you have to do is take the walls and, again, design them out however you'd like. You can move them, maneuver them. I set myself a rule on this where I never had a flat surface of a wall touching another flat surface. I always had them connecting at the corners. That was just something I did because I thought it looked aesthetically cool. Feel free to play with this however you want, especially if you change the textures. What you will need to know is how you set this up in terms of what the actual layout name is and what level it is. So the code will move you from level to level, and this naming convention is important. On each level, so here we'll start with level 1. On each level, you'll have the walls, you'll have a start object, which I call objective, you will have the end, and some levels will have the conveyor belts, which we've already seen. You will also have the cursor over here, and that's just because sometimes the cursor doesn't like to spawn in properly, so it's sitting off to the side on every level. You can just leave it over there. It won't cause any issues. Don't worry about it. But you will want to look at the level controller, which is this pink thing over here with LC on it. And if you select it over here on the side, you will see the properties. It has a couple of instance variables, and these are read by the actual code to tell the game what to do. So it's going to tell it the current level. So when it writes out the level down here, it's going to say level whatever, and then whatever number is in here, and then it will tell you the level name, which is written down here. So if you want to change these, all you have to do is we can change this to tests and say we wanted to make this level 9,000, right? Now we see down at the bottom, it says this is now level 9,000 test. So that's a super easy change you can make if you just want to once you change around the levels, you can change the names. The next level, this will tell it where to go next. Again, this is why this naming convention is important. Whatever number is in next level, it will go to the layout named level _ that number. And then we have the time. So level time is the seconds, and then hundreds is the hundredths of seconds, which you can see next to it. So right now it's set to 3 and 20. If we play, we can see there are 3 seconds and 20 hundredths of a second. If we pick it up, the hundreds start going down. We can change that. So say we wanted to make this 1 and 15. Now we see we have 1 minute and 15 hundredths. And we made it. The one catch with this is because of... Let me switch that back. The one catch is because of the limited events, I had to tweak the way that the hundredths work. So if you put anything in here under 10, unfortunately it comes out looking a little wonky. So the one little restriction you have is in the hundredths, you need to have it be 10 or higher, like anywhere between 10 and 99 really is what we need here. So you can see if I make this 5, it's going to look kind of wonky here because it's not going to have a second hundredth spot. It'll start counting down just the same, so it'll work just fine, but it's going to look a little weird. And unfortunately, Construct removes any zeros. So I've tried messing with it. I can put a 0 in here, but it removes it to make it just 5. There is a way to fix that in the code, but unfortunately I ran out of actual events to make it work. So that is a limitation that I had to add in. I apologize. Just make sure that you have that number anywhere between 10 and 99. And then we do have a Boolean here called start. You don't need to worry about that. That's all handled in code. Just make sure that that's unchecked. Let's jump over to a level with conveyor belts. Conveyor belts are pretty much the same as the walls and everything. If you select the conveyor belt, in Construct you can hold Control and drag, and that will copy it. Or you can select it, Command C and Command V, and then click, and you'll paste it. Oh, it didn't paste there because I was selected on HUD. Make sure you're on layer 0. Again, if you look over here in the layers, you see we have HUD and layer 0. The free version of Construct only allows you 2 layers. So unfortunately, 1 layer is taken up by the HUD. So everything has to happen on layer 0. I apologize for that, but that's just how it works. And I don't think I talked about it before, but this white square here that you see, I guess let's jump back to level 1. And this white square that you see around the outside, this is our camera area. So the camera is actually focused on the central point here. So wherever you're at, this is where the camera is going to be focused. And the reason I have this set up is if we had this directly set up in the corner and everything locked in the same way we did with the menu, we wouldn't be able to do any camera shake. You need some area outside of the camera on the layout to actually shake the camera. So as you can see in game, once we hit something, the camera shakes. If the layout was locked down to the exact size of the layout, we wouldn't be able to see it. But if I move this camera plane here, you can see what happens. It actually pushes everything down now. So if you want to move things around, that is a quicker way to kind of just maneuver if you just need to move things up one block or whatever. I do have everything set on a grid and it's all snapping to grid. If you would like to change that, select anywhere off of the layout, just on the side here. And in the properties panel down the left, you'll see show grid and snap to grid. Go ahead and just uncheck that, uncheck that. Now you can free move anything anywhere. It won't snap in. I find for building, I prefer to have them on. It makes it a little easier to snap everything to where I need it to be. And again, it will snap from the origin point. So if we zoom in here, we can see the walls here have an origin point in the top left. So as we move them around, they will always be aligning themselves with the top left. Whereas the objective, its origin point is in the center, so it's always going to align itself in the center. Again, those can be changed. Double click, go to origin point, right click. I can put this in the top left if I'd like. And now it'll fit in the same. It's not actually an issue however you'd like to do it. You can always change that and it works out just fine. Let's take a look at conveyor belts. So let's go ahead and jump over to a layer with that. And in Construct, you can copy and paste things. Make sure you have the layer 0 selected. You can copy by selecting something, Command C and Command V. That gives you a little crosshair here, and if you click, you'll get a copy. I'm going to delete that. Or you can hold Control, select something, hold Control, and then drag out a copy of it. And that'll just give you another instance, which is nice. If you're using the conveyor belts, the way these ones are set up, there's two pieces of information that make them work. Over here in the properties panel, again, everything you select will have properties along the left-hand side, and this properties panel changes depending on what you have selected. So if we select the conveyor belt, you can see over here we have conveyor. If we scroll down, it tells you its size, it tells you its position, its opacity, angle, all of that. The ones we'll need to worry about are move angle, and the way Construct works is it works on a 360-degree angle with 0 being facing right. So we only need 4 angles here. If you want the conveyor belt to be moving right, you need it to be at 0. If you want it moving down, you need it at 90. If you want it left, you have it at 180. And if you want it moving up, you have it at 270. Should be a little graphic on the screen. Hopefully that makes sense. And then the only other thing you need to change is the actual animation that plays, which down here at the very bottom, you can select and see all the animations that are involved. So I can change this to down. I can change it to left. I can change it to right, up, right. And again, normally I would set this in code, basically saying on the start of layout, if this is facing right, set this angle. But unfortunately, I ran out of events. So it's one extra step. I apologize for that. If you really don't want to mess with any of that, what you can do is just select another level that has the conveyor moving in the way you want. So let's go, for instance, to layer 15, and we can grab the layer facing down. You see the move angle is 90, and the animation is down. But if we want to use that, select it, Command C. We can go ahead, jump back over to the layer we were just on. Make sure layer 0 is selected, Command V, place, and now it's over here, all with the correct information. So actually, while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to set this up on camera right here, but you'll be able to see. We have an objects layout, and I always have this. This is just all the different objects I have in the game. So we have the wall, the cursor, the knife edge. It's just an extra space where if I need to spawn them in, they're at least safe and they're easy to grab. So I'm just going to make conveyors for each direction. So if you need them, you can copy them out of here. So I will select this first one. This one, because I never set any of this up, its move angle is set to 0. So we'll make sure that it's facing right. This one will be set to 90, which will be facing down. This one we will set to 180 and have it facing left. This one is facing up, which is correct, but its move angle should be 270. So if you would like to build with these, go ahead, just select this objects layout, grab it, Command C, go back to the layout you're working on, and paste, Command V. So that should hopefully be simple enough. And again, to move things around, you can just move anything you want. The conveyors and the walls will automatically reorient themselves in terms of the Z order. So if we bring a conveyor and have it above this wall here, once we play it, it will drop itself below. So you don't have to worry about actually adjusting the Z order when using the conveyor belts in the walls. They will do that automatically when the layout runs. So hopefully that all makes sense. Again, so since this is level 7, if we look at the level controller, we have current level set to 7, next level set to 8. The level time for this one is 3 and 10, and the level name is Drop It. And if we hit play, all of that shows up. We are currently on level 7. The next level, of course, is not seen, but it'll be seen at the very end when it actually works. The current time is 3:10, and we can pick this up with the level name of Drop It, move it over, and now we go to level 8. So hopefully that was all clear. Let me run you through the events in case you need to get in here and change anything, and just explain how they work. So let's take a quick look at the event sheet and hopefully go over and make it a little clearer of what everything is. So again, I had to tightly compact this because the free version of Construct only allows you 25 events, and an event is basically an if-then statement. So anywhere we have an if we are on the start of layout, so this little green arrow means that this is a trigger, so the trigger is on the start of layout, all of these things happen. And I'll go through this real fast, and you can delete whatever you need to if you're changing things around, but hopefully it all makes sense. I did try and comment everything, so at least should hopefully tell you what is happening where. But let's run through. So on the start of layout, it first checks to see if the computer has any local storage logged in the browser. This is how we do level progression, so that way if you get to level 10, close down the window, and then come back tomorrow, you still have up to level 10 unlocked. This is why I don't have a load screen or a very simple way to make the conveyors all move the way they want, is because I wanted to have this level progression built in, and it's kind of tough. So first off, it'll check to see if progress_ls, which I have in there for local storage, exists in the local storage. If it doesn't, nothing's going to happen. It'll just leave progress set to 1, and you can start like normal. If progress_ls does exist, then all it does is set the progress variable up here, which is this global variable. This is the only global variable in the entire project. It sets that to whatever is saved in local storage. Then these are a whole bunch of things set up for the animation effect on the end box. So you know how when we finish, the end box pops up and spins? All that is a sine wave and a rotation, and all I do here is these are setting it to disable and setting everything up the way it needs to be. That way I can just turn them on at the very end. So it sets its animation to empty, which again, if we look at it and the animation is empty, and then it chooses randomly one of these 4, 5 animations. So again, this is set animation to frame, and then we have it to choose. We set the mouse cursor to the image we have, object scale. This sets up the fade, so this brings in the fade object, which is above the HUD here. This will just drop this down, or this sets it in place and then fades it out. This is where we set our text from the level controller, so it checks over on the level controller, and for the time, it just sets it to level controller.levelTime, which is what we filled in. For hundredths, it adds in the colon and the space, and then sets in the hundredths from the level controller. And same with the level. It adds in level on its own, then it checks for the actual level number from the level controller, adds that in, adds a dash, and then adds in the level name, which is also written in the level controller. Here is where we check to see if music is not playing. We will play the music. So that means that the first time we play music, it'll start playing. We have it set to loop, so the music will always play. Right here for event 3, if we start a level and progress, which is the global variable up here, if it is less than the current level we're on, then we just update both here and our local storage. And that's how we handle our progression. And unfortunately, I do have to have some menu objects in here because, again, with the limit of 25 events, I couldn't split up the event sheets and have 2 on start of layouts. So there are no buttons in the actual level layouts, so this just gets ignored. But on the menu, this will set the buttons. And this is mainly just set up for level select here. So if this level select, if its level select number is less than the progress, then it will actually set it to a gray image. That's pretty much it. Okay, down here, 7 and 8, we have the drag and drop mechanic. So I use drag and drop, which is a built-in mechanic of Construct. It does tend to fall behind a little bit. The dot doesn't quite stick with the cursor exactly, but again, I had to use the built-in functionality, which allowed me to use less events. So here, when you click on an object and start the drag, we set its scale to be 1, which when it's sitting on the ground, it's actually slightly smaller. We play the pickup sound, we set level control of start to true, and that basically turns on the timer. And we move the object to the top of the layer, which is the Z order. That way it sits above conveyor belts and everything else like that. And very similar down here, when we drop the objective, we set its scale down to 0.8, which makes it slightly smaller. We play the drop sound, and we move all of the walls to the top. That way, if the objective is sitting on a conveyor belt, it goes underneath the walls while it moves past them. Here we have our check for whether or not we hit the wall while holding the objective, and this will call a reset, which is how we reset the level. And unfortunately, this had to be separated from the timer, so if the timer hits 0, then we call reset as well. Unfortunately, having the two together just didn't quite work out as well, so I had to break this into another event. We will get to reset if we come down here to this function. So this is the only function in the game. It's called, and it's reset. And it's not too fancy. Literally, we call reset when these happen. So if we hit the wall, we call reset. And what reset does is it shakes the camera. So here we're setting our camera shake. You can change the magnitude and duration. It plays the death audio. It sets the tween for the fade. So in this case, it's tweening the opacity from 0 to 100. Sets up the opacity, and it sets the timer. We spawn the death particle, which is what those little, flying out things are. We set start to false, which will stop the timer. We destroy the objective. That just ends it so we don't see it. Once we destroy it, we wait 1 second to allow for the fade out, and then we restart the layout. That's as simple as it gets. Here on event 11, we see that we have the object on collision with end. And again, this is how Construct works as far as the visual blocks go. We have the if statement, so if the objective collides with end, then we do all of this. So again, because I added in the little flare, a lot of this is very unnecessary. It just makes it look cooler. So I set the animation of end to full. I start it rotating. I start the sign to make it kind of get bigger, and I move it to the top of the layer so it kind of pops itself forward. Set start to false, play some audio, destroy the object because the end animation is a full block, so we don't want to see the objective anymore. Start the fade, wait, go to the next level. And here's where we have, it goes to a level. So this is a system call that says go to layout. And again, these are all of our layouts. So we have it going to, it pre-populates level underscore. And then all we have to do is check in level controller and we check the next level. The dot is basically, so it's level controller dot next level. Here's where we have our timer set up. So once start is set, every 0.01 second, it will subtract 1 from the hundredths. And here's where I said before, it actually takes an extra event to account for the 0 if the hundredths is less than 10. I have it set up here for when the timer is running, but unfortunately I don't have it set up for when the timer is not running, which is why I suggest earlier that you should always have the hundredths be over 10. That is just setting that text every 0.01 seconds. And here's how we do the roll over the timer. So if the 100th second is ever 0 or below, then we reset it to 99. We subtract 1 from the level seconds, the actual level time. We update the text, and we call the counter sound, which is just the little blip every second to just kind of increase that little tension. Here's how our conveyor belts move. They are extremely simple. If you set the object on a conveyor belt and it's not being dragged, then every tick the object is moved 2 pixels at whatever the conveyor's move angle is, which is why that's set as an instant variable. We've already looked at reset. We can skip that. And here we have the section that deals with the menu. So again, this is clicking on buttons, and each of the buttons has a couple of instance variables as well. There is goto, which is only used if the button type is goto, but this will be the actual name of the level you're going to. Its type is goto. Level selection is only for the buttons on level selection. Again, some of this is a little compacted because I had to fit it all in the 25 events. Normally, I would split this up and make this a little easier to follow. I apologize if it's a little complicated. I tried to message it out here. So if we select the button and it's go to and it's active, then it'll just go to the area we need to. It'll play the sound, shrink the button to make it look like it was clicked, and then go to whatever level we're going to. More games, if you wanted to change that button, this is where the destination URL is. So we can go ahead and look right here. Currently it opens in a new window and goes to my itch page, but that can be changed. For on the about page that goes to this video here, this is actually not the correct link because I'm currently making the video, but that'll go here. Again, that button can be changed. You can have it do whatever it is. For the type, you just need to change the type and it'll play this action. So if I made play save video, it will open up this page. Same with close, it closes it. That's really only important if you're using the desktop version, not the web, but it's in there because I needed it. And then the last two events we have are for full screen. If you press F, it just requests full screen. And if you press M, it'll automatically take you back to the menu. I actually have clear storage in here. This is from testing. I actually ran out of events to test clearing the storage. So unfortunately, I'm going to just go ahead and delete this now. Once you've started unlocking things, you can't really reset it because I don't have any events left for that. So that's all of it. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, please let me know and I will try to answer any questions in the comments. If you do have any questions, check the comments because someone else may have asked that question and I may have answered it. But again, feel free to reach out. I will try and do my best to make this as easy as possible if anybody wants to mess with it. And this game is free for anybody to take and do whatever they want with. Again, all I ask is that you make sure to at least leave my name in there somewhere as the original developer of it, and you're free to do with it what you want after that. And one last note about the level controller and the going to levels. If you are on your final level and you want to have it go to the You Win screen, that is actually set up on the side here as level 99. And the reason I have that set up as 99 is when going to next level, as far as the level controller is concerned, it has to be a number. So I figured making level 99 the final level would be pretty high. I doubt anyone's going to make 99 levels, so you shouldn't run into any conflicts there. You can always change this name if you need to, but I find it's just easier on your very last level. Just make sure that the next level it goes to is level 99, which will take you to the You Win screen. All right, and once you've made all your changes and you want to actually export it, you will go to Menu, Project, Export, and click that. Now, unfortunately, if you're using the free version of Construct, you can't export to desktop, which would be NWJS. You pretty much are limited to web only. I haven't messed with any of the other ones, so I don't think so. But all you'll want to do is select that, click Next. You can change if you want them duplicated, compressed, whatever you would like. You can make the minification simple. I wouldn't suggest advanced, only go with none. And you can click Next. It'll export you a zip file that you are able to upload to itch, and you're good to go. So again, I hope all that made sense. Thank you very much for watching. Again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below or message me on Twitter, or I'm also in the 8bits to Infinity Discord. That link is also in the description. And I hope you have fun. Thanks for watching.